Hello everybody, Danny back from Deep South Homestead with our porch talk today. Guys, it is probably one of the most perfect spring mornings I think I have ever lived. It's like 52 degrees when we got up this morning. Just a little bitty light breeze blowing, not a cloud in the sky. It is crystal clear blue today. Nice and cool. Humidity is low, which is unusual for the Deep South this time of the year. Oh man, Wanda and I have been walking around in the gardens and just sitting on the porch, and we've just been sucking up this time of the morning because this doesn't happen very often. Now, I'm actually supposed to have been cutting hay today because of such the beautiful weather we're going to be having. And they had it laid out where I was going to have 3 really nice days to cut hay. And turns out we're only going to have 2 days of decent weather. And then we have a system moving in here that's going to dump between 2 and 5 inches of rain over the next 3 days after that. And I need 3 good warm days with low humidity to be able to cut and bale hay, which is not going to happen now until possibly the next week after that. So, and that's not really a good week because Wanda has another doctor's appointment one of those days. So we got to just see what we can make happen. We got to get the hay cut because it's almost to go beyond its point before it starts losing its nutritional value. But with that being said, the gardens are all doing fantastic. I can't complain about that. God has been so good. We've gotten the best gentle rains. Sweet corn's fixing to start tossling. The Jimmy Red that I got planted is taller than I am now. And it hadn't even started to even get close to tossling, so that's good. Sweet potatoes are all standing up good this morning. Okra's all standing up beautiful. Taters are all good. We picked Cherokee yellow wax beans this morning. We pulled all the onions in the high tunnel this morning. I mean, it's just been one of the most beautiful mornings to get out and just enjoy God's creation. Now, you just don't get these days, very often. And I know there's people on the East Coast that has been in a drought, especially in the Carolinas. And by the time this video comes out, y'all will probably be in the middle of a lot of rain if what they're saying actually comes to fruition. Now, some rain would be great on crops and stuff up there, but if you keep getting days of it because of a blocked system that's up there, they're talking about just days on top of days of it just training over certain areas. And I hate to see that because people work so hard for their crops and their gardens and all that kind of stuff only to have them destroyed. That's just heart-wrenching when I see something like that happen. Because I raise my own food to eat, and I know how devastating it can be when you lose a crop. I mean, with us, it's total devastation for us because we depend on what we raise to eat, instead of having to go to a grocery store and buy it. But God is good, God's always good. That's the way I look at it. He is always good. Whatever happens, He's going to bring us through it, and He's going to help us get through it, and He's going to help make it work for our benefit. Some way or other, it's going to work out for the good, And, with that being said, I was just sitting here wondering, we do a lot of talking when we're sitting around doing nothing else. We do sit every now and then, believe it or not. Most people don't think we do, but we do. We have our place set up where it pretty much functions on its own. A little bit of help here and there on our part to kind of get things going. Now, the garden is beginning to get a little weedy, but I can't do anything about it because my Cub tractor right now has the sickle bar attachment on it. And you have to take everything off the tractor to put the sickle bar on there. And I can't plow my garden. I can't plow the weeds out of it. So it's just going to be what it is until I can cut that hay. Once I get the hay cut, we'll take it back off, and that's why I need a second Cub tractor. And Wanda understands, I really need a second Cub tractor so that I can just leave the sickle bar hooked up to it and leave the other one for farming and the other one for cutting hay. That's where we're at. And people go, yeah, you could buy an attachment to go to your Kubota, and I really could buy an attachment to hook to the Kubota, probably about as cheap as I could buy another Cub tractor. But there's just something about the older way of life. You know, I can't help it. It's like going to church. And this is going to lead me to where I'm at today. It's like, those of you who are older like I am, remember the old ways of going? Remember the old church? Remember the old ways of church? You just went in, there was a piano, and if you were lucky, there was an organ. That was it. You didn't have nothing else. When I was a little kid, they had fans. You had to sit there and, like, we call them funeral home fans. You had to sit there and had a little stick with a little square thing on it. You know, you had to sit there and fan yourself in church. And the old pews had slats in the back of them, and you sat on them, and they wasn't no air conditioning or nothing like that. We didn't have that kind of stuff back then. And I remember the old church we was in when we finally got ceiling fans put in. The old big ceiling fans sit there and turn around and around in the church, and we was like, oh, Lord, thank you, you know. Then it went from that to padded pews, and from padded pews to air conditioning, and then to all the carpeting. No more wood floors in the church, went to carpeting. And we just spiraled downhill after that. You know, all the mission trips to go across the water into different places, and didn't care about your neighbor down the road as long as you could go to Nicaragua or Honduras or somewhere like that, you know, on a mission trip. You felt like, oh, I'm doing the God's work, you know. Well, my thing is, why do we have to make it so hard today? Why does it have to be so hard? Why does Christianity have to be so hard today? I mean, stop and think about it. You go to church now, the preachers are preaching. If you're not there every time the door's open, or if you're not giving money to some fund, or if you're not participating in some activity or something like that, you're dying going to hell. You didn't get it, brother. You're gonna die and go to hell. I mean, I've heard that for years and years and years of my life. And I'm sitting there going like, that has nothing to do with my destination to heaven. Absolutely nothing, you know? And yet, churches today, they bombard you and bombard you and bombard you for stuff. And I'm not condemning church, now don't get me wrong, because there are good churches out there still. But a lot of churches, they're that way. We got these mission programs. We got to give for these mission programs, and I believe in giving to missions. I used to give to missions all the time. You know, I mean, as a matter of fact, I think it's one of the ways, if you want to be blessed in your life financially, is to give to mission programs. Because God, for some reason, I learned this when I was a young man growing up, and I'll tell you why I feel the way I feel. There was a man who used to come to our church. He was lost as a he-hank in Georgia. I don't know what that means, but I've heard that my whole life. This old guy would come to our church once a year, and he would give, like, I don't remember, it was in the thousands of dollars to the missions program. And the pastor would always talk to him and say, man, brother, why don't you, I didn't call him brother, he said, sir, why don't you just come on and go to church with us? He said, nope. He said, I don't go to church. He said, he'd always say, I know the Lord, and I can quote the Bible and all that kind of stuff, but he would always give to missions, and he'd never come to church a day in his life. And that man was one of the most financially successful men, to just be a plain old man. I mean, it's whatever his hands touched just turned to gold, it seemed like. And one of the reasons I say that is there was a place that come up for sale, a huge farm come up for sale, and the old man went and talked to him, and ended up buying that whole big farm. Now, we're talking about a big farm. He ended up buying it for $20,000. Now, of course, back then, $20,000 was a lot of money, but it should have sold for about double that. But they sold it to him for $20,000. And his family still has it to this day. They still have it. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, now here's a man who never darkens a church door, but he always said something. He said, there are biblical principles that God himself will not go against. And I sit there and I looked at that and I was like, you know, he's going to die and probably go to hell. You know, he doesn't care if he knows the Lord or not. He just knows if he gives to missions that he will be blessed here upon this earth. That's the best he's ever going to get, is what he gets here, and then when he dies, it'll be an eternity of torment. But I watched that, and I learned at a young age that if you give to others, now when I say missions, it doesn't have to be a foreign country. As long as you're giving to others, Wanda and I will usually pick someone once a year, someone to bless or something to bless, and that's our mission. And God has always blessed that. One year we gave to a ministry in Israel. You know, we gave to that to help that ministry to present the gospel in Israel. Now, yeah, I know you probably say, well, Israel, that's God's country. Israel today is one of the most wicked countries on the face of the earth. And they don't even know the Lord over there. They don't believe that Christ has come yet. So they need the gospel. And Wanda and I occasionally will give to those ministries. But then you stop and you think, why do we have to keep making it so hard for church to be like it is? I mean, salvation. Take salvation, for instance. People put binders. Now, I'm going to use some language here. People put binders on salvation. Salvation, the Bible tells us, is so simple that even a child could understand it. You had to, because it mentions several times talking about the faith. If you just had the faith of a child, and I've used this as this instance before. When I was a minister, I would ask my daughter to come up to the front of the church when she was just a little bitty thing. She was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old maybe. And I'd take the communion table and I'd stand her up on it and turn her back to the congregation. And I'd say, baby, just fall backwards, Daddy will catch you. And she would just fall backwards and I'd catch her in my arms. I said, that's what I'm talking about. That's what God expects from us. He expects the faith of a child. That child believed that me as her father, no matter what, she didn't have to look. If she just fell backwards, I was going to catch her, regardless of the consequences of her falling to the floor and busting her head wide open or breaking her neck or her back or anything. She didn't think about none of that. She believed her daddy was going to catch her. She had faith enough to believe her father was going to catch her. And that's what Christ is talking about. He's talking about you just need to have the faith of a child. You got to have that kind of faith to just believe. But today, my dog monitor is going off out there because the wind's blowing. Y'all just have to excuse that. Today, we sit back and we keep trying and trying and trying to make Christianity so hard and salvation so hard for people to understand. They're like, well, in order to be saved, you got to do this, or in order to be saved, you got to do that. In order to reach the kingdom of heaven, you got to do this, or you got to do that. And no, you don't. All you got to do is just believe on the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, or Yeshua HaMashiach, and that's all you got to do. That's all he asks, is just that we just believe and have faith. And it's just that simple. There's no binders attached to it. So many pastors out there want to attach stuff to it, like I was talking about a while ago. Well, if you're not here every time the church doors is open, you're dying going to hell. You didn't get it. You know, and all this kind of... No. That has nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. But yet, it seems to be the going way and the going thing for churches today. They want to put binders on it, right? And if you don't give to missions, you didn't get saved. You know, it has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. And, you know, as Wanda and I were sitting there, we were talking this morning about what would it be like to just go back to the old ways. You know, Jeremiah 6:16, when the Lord was talking to the nation of Israel, told him, says, return to the old paths, we're enter the good ways. Now, he's not talking about, you know, the Lord's not asking us to go back to horses and buggies and stuff like that. He's talking about return to the old paths, the old ways of worshiping, the old ways of doing things, the simple ways of life. Is it even possible in America today, is it even possible for us to go back to a simpler way of life? And my podcast is about that I do. It's about returning to a simpler way of life. And I'm here to tell you that unless there are some really drastic changes in this country, no, it's not possible to go back to the old paths. I mean, Wanda and I were talking about automobiles this morning. We were talking about how that cars used to be made out of real metal. They were all steel frames underneath them, steel up in there. You could bump them, hit them. It didn't even dent them. I mean, you know, you could bump into somebody. You didn't have to worry about nothing. You get out and say, "Oh, scratch the paint a little bit. I think we'll be all right." You know, and everybody just go on their way. Or like we were talking about taking a trip. How that me and her used to when we were young kids. People just jump in any old car and you'd hit the road going on a trip somewhere. And if you broke down, you'd ask somebody, can you take me to the parts house? Let me get a part. And they'd load you up in an old vehicle and take you to a parts house. You get a part, come back, and everybody kept a toolbox in the trunk of the car. Or in the back of the truck or somewhere, behind the seat or somewhere. And you get out and you work on your vehicle. And you get it back going and you go again. Nobody puts a toolbox in a vehicle anymore because if something happens today, you can't even work on them. I mean, I went to college to be a mechanic. And I won't even work on my own truck anymore, hardly. Now I'll do simple things. But when it comes down to diagnostics and stuff like that, I don't have the thousands of dollars to spend on all this equipment to hook up to these things and see what all is going on with them and reading all these error codes and all that kind of stuff. To me, that's just hogwash. Why can't we just put a plain old engine back in a vehicle and a plain old carburetor and just plain old air conditioning? Wanda and I were talking about how we used to have the hand cranks where you roll down the windows and a little thing in the corners of the windows where you could unlock them on the inside and turn them inward, so when you're driving down the highway, the cool air could blow in on you. If your air conditioning went out, you could still stay cool. You didn't have to have the windows rolled down. Just blowing that cool air going down the highway on you. You can't do that no more. Everything now is electronic. I mean, my truck right now, the windows won't roll down unless I open the door wide open on it, and it's got a short in it somewhere, and you have to hit the button to let the windows roll down. Totally frustrating. I mean, completely frustrating. Why can't we just go back to vehicles being made out of real metal instead of plastic and aluminum and fiberglass and titanium and all this kind of stuff that all these vehicles are made out of now to make them lighter and lighter? So everybody goes, well, it's about mileage. We got to get more mileage. Look, when I was a teenage boy, there was a man in my hometown here who invented a carburetor to fit a motor. Fit on a Chevy engine that got 100 miles to the gallon. And boy, he was so excited. He sold it to an oil company, and they shut the patent down on it. They paid him good now. He got paid really, really good. But they took the patent and shut it down, and it never went anywhere. That irritates me to no end, to know that there's men out there who's invented stuff. And when these patents, whenever they go to get these patents, these companies will come in and buy them up and shut them down just so it doesn't affect their bottom line, I guess you would say. It can still be done. But now it's all about emissions. Oh, we're destroying the ozone layer, you know. Look, one volcano can go off and it puts more carbon in the atmosphere than 10 years of people driving cars on the earth. I mean, we've been lied to so much about things until it's pathetic. It's really pathetic, you know. We do more damage to the atmosphere traveling to outer space back and forth through these, blowing holes through the ozone, going back and forth and flying these big fancy jet airliners all over the world. You know that's in the book of Daniel. The Bible says in the latter days of an age that we live in, here it's the end of the days, you know, church age is almost over now, that man will be going to and fro in the earth, and knowledge will increase. Now that's in the book of Daniel. Everybody jet sets everywhere now, all over the earth, and now we have AI. And the Bible says will be an increase in knowledge, and AI is an increase in knowledge. And when that happens, it's almost over, guys. It's almost over. And that's why it's so important for us to focus on our eternal destination, is getting back to the old ways, getting back to just simpler living. You know, Wanda and I raise our food here, as much of it as we possibly can. Now, we're not 100% self-sustaining. Nobody is. And don't ever believe somebody when they tell you they're 100%, because they're not. Our forefathers were never 100%. We're not 100%. And kind of in a lot of ways, I wish we could go back to the old general stores where you just went in and carried a grocery list in, you give it to the man behind the counter. There wasn't all these choices. You know, you didn't have fruits and vegetables shipped in from all over the world, where you could buy bananas in December and strawberries in December. You know, you ate in season. That's the way God planned for it to be. Your body craves and needs whatever is in season for that time of the year. And we have just screwed that all up. You know, all in the name of prosperity and global trade and all this kind of stuff. It's done nothing but brought demise to the human race, to our health, and to just the way of life in general. Everything has gotten so technical now that even when I do YouTube videos, you got to realize different people who live in different parts of the country use different words for different things. You know, like, I go out here in the garden, if I pick a bug up off of a plant and I mash it and it stinks, the way I was raised, that's a stink bug. It stinks. If I mash it, it stinks. But no, if I pick a bug up and I look at it and I go, oh, it's a stink bug, people go, oh no, that's some kind of footed leafhopper or whatever, I don't know. You know, they use all these technical terms. It doesn't matter. If I mash it and it stinks, it's a stink bug. I don't give a flip what you call it. It's a stink bug. I don't care if it's green and little, if it's long and brown. If you mash it and it stinks, it's a stink bug. I am not politically correct. I do not want to be politically correct, and I never will be politically correct because it's not in my desire to be that way. Now, do I appreciate people who go to school to learn all about insects and be able to tell us things about them? Yes, I do. And I appreciate that I can pick an insect up and I can go on, there's an app on the phone. Wanda has a phone. I don't have a phone. I don't want one. Wanda has an app on her phone where I can shoot that insect and draw a circle around it, and it tells me exactly what that insect is, tells me all about that insect and everything I need to know about it. Am I glad for that? Yeah, that's pretty interesting, so that I'll always know when I see something on my property that I've never seen before, I can look it up and I know what it is. But it's kind of like the ladybug issue we just went through. You know, yes, are Asian Are the Asian lady beetles in the ladybug family? Yeah, they're in the ladybug family, but I don't want them on my property. I don't care if they eat 100 million aphids. I don't want them on my property. Now, I don't mind ladybugs being here. I don't mind lacewings being here. I don't mind certain things like that being on my property, parasitic wasps and stuff like that. But I don't want no Asian lady beetle on my property because they can become an infestation just like the aphids are. And so I don't get technical about anything. I'll wipe out everything out there. I don't care. If I'm growing my food, I'm not trying to sit here because in the deep south it gets so hot. Food doesn't last on the plants like it does up north. Now, I've lived up north. I know. As a matter of fact, 3 hours north of here where I used to live in a little old town called Noxapater, I tried growing a garden up there, and I've grown a garden for 40 years of my life. I know how to garden, and I know how to grow stuff. I got up there and I was fighting it to grow things. I mean, I was struggling. And a dear gentleman, Mr. Norval Manning, he looked at me and he told me, he said, brother, what you done in the South won't work here. I said, dude, it's only 3 hours between where I live at, and used to live at, and where I live at now. He said, I don't care how far it is, it won't work. He said, until you do it the way it's got to be done here, it's not going to work. He showed me how to grow in that climate and that soil. And guys, I grew squash plants that stood 4 feet high and 5 feet in diameter. Had leaves on them that looked like a water hyacinth that grows in the swamps of Louisiana, you know. I looked at that and I said, oh my goodness. He said, see what I was telling you? He said, even though it's only 3 hours from here to here, what works at your place won't work here. And guys, let me tell you something. That was one of the biggest eye-openers to me, I think, that I've ever had. And yes, we shoot a lot of things about gardening here on YouTube at our place. But you know what? It doesn't mean it's going to work where you're at. Now, can you take some of the concepts and make it work there? Yes, you can. The insects you have there and what you do at your place 3 hours from here won't work here. Fruit trees grown 45 minutes north of me will produce apples. Come 45 minutes south, they'll grow a beautiful tree, but they won't make an apple here. There's that much difference in the chill hours. And that's why we've got to quit this thing about making it so hard for not only religion, our Christianity, gardening. We got to quit making it so hard for everybody to do things. And guys, let's just get along and say, you know what? Let's just enjoy gardening again, like we used to do in the old days. You know, I've seen people say, well, I wouldn't till the soil if I was you. You're just destroying all the microbes in the soil and all thing. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. If you're a little old small-time gardener, if you've got a little plot maybe that's 150 feet by 150 feet or something like that, and you want to get out there and you want to put all kind of wood chips down, and then you want to, and you want to do your stuff, that's your business. But you know what? You grow fields as big as we grow, you got to till the soil. I've seen the soil tilled my whole life. In the Bible, the Lord told Adam he had to till the soil. And I believe in tilling the soil. Now, I don't believe in getting stupid crazy with it. I don't believe in going out here if it's powder dry here and hooking my tiller up and just tilling until the ground's nothing but a talc powder bed. No, I do not believe in that. That's ignorance. But when you've got a field like I've got out here right now, and I've got rows all bedded up nice and pretty, and little grass is starting to pop up on those rows, to put a set of cultivators behind a tractor, and especially like rolling cultivators or something like that, and run down through there and that top inch of that soil, just go through there and just pulverize it and kill all them weeds on it. There is nothing in the world wrong with that. As a matter of fact, land needs to be subsoiled so that minerals, roots can grow deep. There's reasons behind everything we do. you can take in the deep south here in the fall of the season, and you go out there and you take the field, if it's standing full of corn and you've harvested all the corn off of it, and you put a turn plow on the back of your tractor and you turn all that carbon underneath the soil and you let it rest underneath there all winter long. And then when that spring comes and you go through there and you drop that plow down, it opens up all that organic matter. You can put your seeds in there and your fertilizer, and guys, you grow the most beautiful crops that there is, you know. But now if you're doing a little 100 by 100 or 50 by 50 plot or 25 by 25, I totally get it. And the reason my eyes was opened, I did a video, been many years ago, with a lady from Idaho. She contacted me because I'd done a video about how that Back to Eden didn't work. And she contacted me and she says, I'd like to do a video with you because Back to Eden is the only thing that works where I live. And I'm like, really? And she said, I don't understand why Back to Eden won't work where you live at. So we done a video together explaining all about what went on in her climate, what went on in my climate, and my eyes was opened as to why Back to Eden works so good up in the mountains of Idaho up in there, where they have nothing mainly but just rock and a little soil up in there. And they can add those wood chips on top of that in there, and it grows some of the most beautiful foods you've ever seen. And they don't know anything about imported fire ants or termite issues like we have down here or anything else. And when I explained to her what goes on down here with insects, when you put the wood chips out, how they just eat your little plants off and fire ants build beds in them, she'd never heard of that kind of stuff, but she totally understood it. And we both realized that what you do in one part of the country doesn't work in the other part. I mean, if I was to move out to Arizona and try to grow out there, I would have a steep learning curve trying to grow in an arid climate like that. I mean, the last time I was out in Mexico, it was so dry out there. I mean, you almost couldn't have saliva in your mouth. The humidity was so low, you know. So, I mean, it would be a whole new learning curve. And that's, guys, that's the point I'm trying to make is, why do we have to make it so hard? Why can't we just say, hey, why can't we say, you know what, if Back to Eden works where you live at, then do it. Do it. If growing in wood chips, or if growing in raised beds is the only way you can grow because the soil is so rocky, or let's just say you have the forever chemical in your soil and you have to grow in raised beds, I mean, in containers and all that kind of stuff, then that's what you need to do. You take down here where we grow in this extreme heat down here. I'm talking, when I say extreme, I'm talking about extreme. Then what we do here won't work way inland. We have a high salt content in our air down here toward the Gulf Coast. You guys inland don't have that. We have a really sandy soil down here. Now, some places on the property here where I'm at now has got a heavier clay soil to it, but it's mostly still sandy in a lot of places. Most of the people way inland don't have that. They just got clay. And we've got different soils for different places, different microclimates. On this one property I'm on right now, I know of 4 different microclimates that's on this one piece of property. And that's why I try to figure out what grows best at what place on this property. And when we do YouTube, and other people are doing YouTube, why do we have to make it so hard and condemn somebody else for what they do? You know, I mean, it's totally not necessary to say that. That's like me. For me to say Back to Eden is bullcrap, that would be a misstatement for someone who lives in Idaho, because it works fantastic there. I've seen it. It works great there. You know, I mean, and container gardening here, with my containers set up on blocks and treated lumber to keep the fire ants from coming up into the pots. And sometimes I have to spray the blocks to keep the fire ants from coming up there. Works fantastic down here. But it may not work for someone else where they live at. And for me to say this is the only way to garden would be foolish on my part to do that. I've tried growing with ground cover, the DeWitt ground cover. And does it work down here? Yes, it works. But let me tell you something. It is a magnet for fire ants. Now, if I was just doing like 100 by 100 area or something like my greenhouse, for instance. My greenhouse is 24 feet wide and 60 something feet long. I have the DeWitt ground cover down on the bottom in it, just so I don't have to step in the mud and the dirt when I'm working in there and everything. And it keeps the ground clean. I don't have to worry about grass popping up through it and all that kind of stuff. It works great for that, you know. But I'm not putting it out here in that big old field sitting right out here beside me that's over an acre in size and got 300 something foot long rows out there. I'm not running DeWitt ground cover out there and trying to staple all that stuff down and trying to work out there in the heat on top of that stuff when all I got to do is put a plow on my Cub tractor and run out there and just drop them plows down and run through there, and in 15, 20 minutes, that whole garden's taken care of and it looks immaculate, and I haven't done a doggone thing to hurt anything. That's what I'm talking about. We've just got to learn, guys, to quit making it so hard and making people feel guilty because they don't garden the way you garden, you know. I never ask anybody to do what I do. I just look at people and say, you know what? Love it, enjoy it, have a good time, whatever works for you, do it, you know. I use electroculture here. I see fantastic results from it. I've seen other people try it and they go, well, I can't make nothing happen. It's not magic, okay? You can't use it without the proper fertility and the proper pH. If I see someone using electroculture, I look at them and I say, what's the pH of your soil? Well, I don't know. If you don't know the pH, you're already screwed. Nothing's going to work for you. I don't care if you put fertilizer, animal manure, whatever you put. If that pH ain't right, there ain't nothing going to work right. You might grow a pretty plant, and you might do some pretty good vegetables on it, but there's no nutritional density to it whatsoever. It's void of everything. It's like the stuff you get in the grocery stores. It's void of any nutrition. It may be pretty, and it may look good, and it may have a decent taste, but it's void of nutrition. You've got to do a soil test on your property to see what's missing out of the soil so that you know what goes in it. So that's my point today, guys. I know Porch Time's went a little bit long, but the thing about it is we've got to quit making it so hard for everybody. We've got to quit coming down on people because they don't do things the way we do them. Like I said, I never ask anybody to do what I do. All I do is show you what I do, and my prayer is that you can take and glean from it, and maybe you can make some of it work where you're at, and hopefully you can produce some good food. I never quit learning. I am constantly looking for new ways to do things, even though I still use my old technology, because I'm just like the Lord told the nation of Israel, you need to return back to the old paths wherein is the good ways. You know, to be honest with you, me and technology is a love-hate relationship. I love it because I can reach out to you guys and we can share thoughts, ideas, things like that. But I hate the fact, like, Wanda went to the dentist the other day, had some surgical procedures done on her jaw and her mouth in there, and they tried to send the prescription over to the pharmacy. We waited for over an hour out in vehicles and everything, and I kept going in. They're like, we hadn't got anything yet. And I finally had to go back to the dentist's office and walk in and have the lady give me a written prescription on paper and go back to the pharmacy and get them to fill the prescription because technology kept failing, sending it back and forth like that. And a woman sitting out there in a vehicle suffering, when if it had just given me a piece of paper to start with, in 15 minutes it'd have been done, I'd done been home. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Sometimes technology is good, sometimes it's no good, you know. As a matter of fact, technology will be what will be the demise of man in the end, because we're told it is through the beast system in Revelation. So, guys, let's quit making it so hard for one another, and let's do what Jesus said before he left the earth, and left us with his last and greatest command, to love one another. He said, as I have loved you. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.